The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
So 1,491 days ago is when everyone in America was told there's a deadly virus. It's going to kill all of us. It'll probably be gone in 2 weeks. Go inside and lock your doors and don't come out. And then we all did that for like 8 months. And that, I believe, was the beginning of the apocalypse.
Interesting. But we didn't all do that. Utah did that for like a month.
You're right. Utah, well, and I think the reason that Utah only did it for a month is that Utah was prepared for the apocalypse.
Uh-huh.
Like, we had food storage. We'd been preaching about it for 200 years. We'd actually been looking forward to it because it would give some of our bland and meaningless lives some color. And so when it happened,
consciously making it happen, even probably.
Yeah, I imagine that we probably did because we thrive in those times. Like, Mormons are super good at surviving. I mean, we came to Utah in the 1800s when this was just all a desert. I mean, it still is a desert wasteland.
Mm-hmm. I love how, like, really the West is really highly affiliated with cowboys, but we're affiliated with Mormons, but our Mormons were fucking like cutthroat cowboys. So it's interesting.
Cutthroat cowboys. Like, I'm just dying for HBO to learn about Brigham Young.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they learn about
graphic.
That's not House of Dragons isn't your new Game of Thrones, HBO. Brigham Young.
Yeah, that is your new Game of Thrones.
That is your new game. And it could just be Young because it's got the O in it, and then you could have the little Game of Thrones lines. And I'd watch. I mean, because Brigham Young was gnarly.
Oh yeah,
that dude was intense. Yeah. So it's been 1,491 days since the apocalypse. Hi everybody. I'm the Fresh King Benjamin. I'm your host of this podcast, Vibing the Apocalypse. I am accidentally the one true prophet of the apocalypse. And so all of your apocalypse needs and questions can be answered by me because I and I alone have the bat's bone to God. And you should only listen to me as the one and only true prophet. And today I'm really excited for my guest because coming to you live from the great state of Utah and the just really hotbed of like lust and glamour and wickedness that is Salt Lake City, Utah, what my parents grew up calling the whore of Babylon. We looked at Salt Lake City and we were like, that is Babylon right there. Molly the stripper. Molly, welcome to Vibing the Apocalypse.
Hi, Fresh King Benjamin, my soul prophet and guider.
Thank you. I love it. I love it when people play the game. Molly, I'm excited to have you on today. And before we get into our hilarious and insightful conversation that we're going to have, that I imagine will actually probably heal people just from the sounds of our voices, I want to just tell everyone a little bit about how we met, because that's important to what's going on in your life right now. So we had been kind of not Facebook friends because we're younger than that. We're Instagram friends. So we're hip and cool. Mm-hmm. And you had posted something that I thought was really funny, like on your stories. And so I was like, I just laughed at it. And then you saw that and you were like, oh, I need a comedian for like a grand opening that you're doing. Tell everyone about this grand opening that you're doing in a couple weeks.
All right. So I'm doing a grand opening. I bought a cabaret bar. Where do I start?
For those of us, we'll start here. For those of us that maybe don't know what cabaret means, what is a cabaret bar?
So you're about to get Molly's version of this, because I don't have an extensive background in burlesque. I don't have an extensive background in cabaret. I am known for being Molly the stripper. For 10 years, that's been my persona. I've worked at strip clubs, mostly at one strip club. So buying a cabaret You gotta go back a little. I did a research and development trip last year. I've been looking at buying a strip club or something in that wheelhouse for like years. So I do a little research and development in New York and LA, and I'm looking at the markets and I'm looking at the clubs, and I'm just curious about what's going on in these cities. They're typically 10, 20 years ahead of us, right? So I went to the famous Jumbo's Clown Room in LA. That was the one I was actually the most excited to go to, and that was the one I was the most impressed by. And they're also considered, I think they're called a cabaret, but they're also listed as a strip club. And I was kind of like, that's my vibe, that's my jam, especially because I've had opportunities to buy clubs that have what people call the coveted SOB license, which is a sexually oriented business license.
SOB is sexually oriented business.
Yeah, we could do an entire episode about SOBs.
It's not, whoever named that didn't know that it was also son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
Is that a Utah thing or is that national?
I believe that you have to have a certain type of sexually oriented business in most states to operate any type of strip club, but I could be wrong. And we're working within a loophole, which is the same way Jumbo's Clown Room does, which is we have a special license. And the only difference is, so all of our rules and laws are the same as like a typical strip club in Utah with alcohol. The only difference is that you cannot remove your top at this club. So
Okay.
in essence, it's a glorified bikini bar, but so are all the bars that are strip clubs in Utah. You know what I mean? Like they're all very restricted on what they can do.
We say bikini bar, and as a Utah person, I hear strip club.
Good. I love that.
That is, you're taking off, you're in a bikini.
Because some people really
basically
want
naked.
to separate all of it. They want to be like, this is a bikini bar, this is a cabaret, burlesque is not stripping. And like, I'm not that bitch. I'm like, this is all same, different to me. And I get and respect that burlesque has roots, but I also know that there's some antagonistic shit there where people are like, I'm not a stripper, I'm a burlesque performer. And I'm like, bitch, what do you think I do on stage? I'm doing the same shit. And in some ways, there's people in burlesque that have skill levels that are way higher than mine. But a lot of times I know a lot of strippers whose skill level is like, you know, blowing these burlesque dancers out of the water. And not that there is a little apples and oranges, right? Like they're not exactly the same thing, but they are very fucking similar.
Yeah, and to be good at either requires like a level of commitment and discipline and rigor and like intentional practice that it's weird that there's antagonism when it could just be fun. It kind of reminds me of the way that like LDS Mormons think about polygamous Mormons. Like every group just needs another person in kind of their same category that they can shit on. So the burlesquers are just like, look, we're not strippers. Strippers are like the craziest, but we're burlesque.
Strippers used to, and I'm not saying this as much now, but strippers used to be like, I'm not an escort or a prostitute. Like,
yeah,
I'm a stripper.
I'm a stripper.
But there's a lot on this topic that's basically, you know, it's called the hierarchy, and it's just
the hierarchy. Oh my God! Wait, pause. The hierarchy. You're not just gonna drop that.
Yeah, it's very real and it's very bizarre. And even early on in my career, I think I was, you know, I came from a Mormon background, so I'm used to a lot of groupthink anyways. But I also, throughout my time as a Mormon, was very outspoken about things that like didn't track for me or didn't resonate for me, even though I continued to stay. And so even early on when I started hearing this type of like thing in the industry, at first I was like, yeah, okay, I guess like that makes sense. Like and this of course is not an outward conversation I'm having, it's an internal one, but I'm like, yeah, I guess we don't want to be associated with hookers, right? Like, and then later I actually remember some of the moments, but it was like we'd be in the dancer room talking and someone would be shitting on someone who's full service, which is, you know, a whore or a prostitute or whatever. And I was privy to the knowledge of like, I know what you're doing in your personal life because you tell me about it. And I also at this point had started to know and get to know full service sex workers. And I was like, you're sleeping with more people than the full service people that I know, and you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
But you think because you're a stripper and you only get paid to dance or for the fantasy of a sexual interaction that you are above someone? who gets paid for that. Anyways, I started to be like, that doesn't make sense. I don't like it. That's not, I don't get it. Anyways, and so then I got exposed to more information about it and was like, oh wow, this is the hierarchy and it's stupid and it's divisive and it's judgmental and it's all the things that I didn't want to be a part of the church because of.
I
And
love that you deconstructed the LDS church and then you deconstructed the hierarchy.
yeah, I had help, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't coin the phrase hierarchy. I'm not even sure who did.
Oh,
But
whoever did, that was like a throw the pen away writing day. Like, crushed it.
done.
Hierarchy is so good.
Then you're gonna like, oh, I shouldn't say this, but we have an idea that uses something similar to that in our business. And I kind of want to say it now because it's really good, but I'm not going to.
Well,
I have self-control.
Where can people go to hear that? If they come to the grand opening, will they hear about this thing?
No, so we've got big plans.
Tell us about these big plans for
our grand opening.
Tell us about the grand opening. Yeah.
So the grand opening is Thursday, the 25th of April at 7 p.m. I think the intention is to have a little meet and greet kind of thing, and then there'll be a program from 8 to 9 with us showcasing a little bit of what this club is going to be like, which includes weekly events that are going to be really interesting. I think I'm allowed to talk about this, and if I'm not, I don't, who cares? But this part is that we're going to be introducing like stripper karaoke, stripper bingo.
What is stripper bingo? So you get a bingo card,
Mm-hmm.
and when the stripper does the thing that's on your card, you can get it. Okay.
Yep. When she does a move or something that like is a standard move in the industry, like you'll get, you'll do bingo.
That sounds like the best game of bingo in the entire world.
I think it will be. But yeah, so we're going to show some of those things at the grand opening and also like live music with dancers. I got to do that once because I bought this club 2 months ago and have just been, running it with my team until the rebrand, which was super helpful and super a good learning thing. But also we all wanted to die this whole time because it was so hard and it was so, yeah, it was like sink or swim, deep end. But anyways, back to the grand opening. So, what I was going to say is that I did get, I had never danced to live music before until we had someone come in, a rap group, and I had no idea what to expect. But they were really, man, I wish I remember their name right now, but they were really good. And I got to dance, live with them performing, and that's just different.
All that experience is because as a comic, I sort of think that there's some energetic similarities to comedy and as it is to stripping.
It's super similar.
Yeah. And what I'm seeing is what's one of the most fun things about comedy is being the center of everyone's attention.
Yeah. It's like me.
Being
it's about me.
Focal point, and I've captured everyone and you are all mine right now.
Yeah.
That is so fun. And the energy that you get from that is like, it is the best. It's the best.
Two things. One, that's one of the things I forgot to say is that that's part of why I wanted you to host is that we are going to be including comedy and pole nights, which is something I'm seeing in the bigger markets that I'd really like to see here and that Kennedy's had done. And it seemed like
so I did a couple shows at Kennedy's and it was really fun. The energy is really great. The comedy and the cabaret mix really well together. Mm-hmm. And so I was thrilled when I heard that you were taking over Kennedy's and that you were running it. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like this is going to be a really upscale, very cool, very intentional, very sexy place. Because the energy there is already pretty great. It's an awesome space that you have. And so bringing your vibe into that space and then intentionally creating the kind of environment that I think you're going to create, where there's going to be a lot of fun, playful, curious, erotic energy. And there's also going to be a really safe, deliberate container for that energy that I think is going to be a little bit different from maybe some of the venues that currently exist in Utah where you can sort of go and play in that energy?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really unique. I'm really excited about that. But I wanted to comment on before I forget that how similar, like, so I haven't done stand up, but I have a dancer friend who did do stand up
Mm-hmm.
and have discussed that with her. And part of the reason you were even on my radar is that I follow a lot of local comedians. I follow a lot of national comedians or international comedians, and I've met a lot of them. And I love going to shows. I went to Clusterfest. I don't know if you know what that is.
No, I've never heard
Um,
of that. That sounds rad.
it's
Cluster.
a comedy festival, like, and I
What?
saw all Jon Stewart, like I saw all the people.
Oh my God.
It was like, it was so fun. But anyway, so I've been a big fan of comedy for a long time. I actually studied comedy at Second City in Chicago, but I've
Did
never
you
had,
really?
yeah, but
So
I've never,
jealous.
what?
I just said I'm so jealous.
Oh, it was so amazing. So I have a big interest in comedy that's mostly connected to my screenwriting past. And, I used to be an actress and I'm still screenwriting. I've won some awards last year for my screenwriting
Oh, hell yeah.
and my short films and things like that. Um, so comedy, I feel really interested in that way. I don't have a burning desire for stand-up. I think I might want to give open mic night a try at some point, especially where we're going to have it at the club, but I don't really have for some reason. Maybe it's because my cup is filled with my stripping, right?
Yeah.
Like my performance, cup is filled. Anyways, what I wanted to say is I've thought so much about the parallels, though, I think because I have such an interest in stand-up specifically, that like both do something so incredibly vulnerable.
Totally.
Both
Mm-hmm.
and if you took away the vulnerable part of it, it wouldn't be good, right? Like if strippers weren't taking off their clothes, that's not the experience, right? If
Yeah.
comedians aren't getting vulnerable as well, like you don't want to hear them. Like they're not good to listen to.
Yeah. And there's even maybe a layer underneath that where it's like, it's not just if strippers weren't taking off their clothes or if comedians weren't telling jokes, because strippers don't just take off their clothes and
Oh
comedians
no.
don't
Yeah.
just tell jokes. It's almost like you have to inhabit that act, right? So a stripper, to be really good, a stripper has to be like fully embodying the sensuality, the act of taking off your clothes, right? That's where that energy, and that energy is really vulnerable. And as a comic, you have to be there too, right? You have to be in the act of telling a joke. And a good joke is a little bit, there's an edge to it, right? There's a sense of like, maybe this doesn't work. Like you got to be kind of right there. And if you're not right there on the edge, you're not going to have the same kind of snap with the audience as you would. And so it's fun. It's really interesting to think about both of those.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as like, just as expressions of our creativity and of our eroticism, right? That as erotic living beings, we kind of like take up the space. And I remember when I was first doing comedy, when I was like maybe a year in, I was opening for some people. I hadn't ever really landed with the audience where I'd gotten some laughs. I'd gotten enough to feel like I was legit and that it was worth pursuing, but there hadn't ever been a moment when the audience had like totally surrendered to me and I'd totally surrendered to them. And we were just kind of caught in this sort of passionate experience, right, of laughing. And so I was opening up in Ogden for Wise Guys, and I'm getting ready. I'm kind of like in the space. I'm sort of like just kind of getting ready, listening to the before shows. I'll listen to the audience. I'll kind of just be in the energy of the space so I can sort of feel who they are. And while I'm doing that, a couple of people that I knew showed up to go to the show, and one of them was this woman that I thought was pretty cute. And she had dressed up that night and she was looking very cute. And so she pops in and I get a look at her and I get this little zing of attraction. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. And then I was like, I'm going to play with that in this set, right? It's not going to go anywhere more than this, but this little zing of energetic aliveness that I just felt, that's where I'm going to do comedy from. And it was fully embodied, right? So I was, from my head down to my toes, I was in my body, and I went up on stage And I had an amazing set where at one point, the laughter that I elicited was so uncontrollable that I tried to move on to other jokes and they kept rolling in the thing that I had said for like 30 seconds. And then I tried to move on to another thing. And then I had to come back to that thing because they were still laughing about that thing. And that was immensely pleasurable. That was very erotic. And it was energetic entirely, right? I was just in my body and in the energy of the room that I was in, and I just did something magic with it. And that was magic. Like that was super, super cool. And I imagine that when it's good as a stripper, that's the sort of energy where it's like all of this attention is on me. I'm in charge of it and I'm going to just pop with it. And that sounds like actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, literally just popping it. But yeah, it's very similar. I loved hearing that story, and there's a couple things I want to say. One is that is about working a room. Like being able to work a room is a skill that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And to be able to look around a room and make a tiny connection with like almost everyone that you see. I think people have watched me, and it's interesting because I have all my own kinds of thoughts and feelings about the kind of performer I am, right? Or the skill level I have, or whatnot and what have you. But one of the skills I did learn is that I wanted to connect with the audience. And at first, my first year, I couldn't do that, actually. I think as a stripper, it's so hard and it's so intimidating that first year. And I've met dancers who've been in it 10, 15 years who still cannot make eye contact because it's so vulnerable already. They're like, I cannot add eye contact into this thing that's already so difficult. But my first year, I had some kind of shift where I was like, I think I had felt like if they look me in the eyes, they're going to take something from me. And I can't afford to give them what they want. And I don't even know how the depth of how to explain that. But then once someone had told me that you need to make eye contact, and of course, doing my research online, it was like, oh, the best thing you can do as strippers make eye contact, or best thing you can do in sales is make eye contact. And so I eventually kind of forced myself into doing that. But very quickly, I was like, oh, this not only is not that uncomfortable for me once I can get over myself. In fact, I'm getting something from it. Like I'm really getting something from it.
There's
And
an
that was
exchange of
and that
energy.
was there's an exchange.
Yeah.
And I found a way. I haven't found the way to do this in conversation with people always, but I often can. But I have found a way that as a performer, that no one takes anything from me. We're only exchanging. We're only giving each other good things. I'm giving you entertainment. I'm giving you attention. I'm giving you connection. You're giving me an audience. You're giving me attention. You're giving me a connection. And then it gets into the science of that, later when I, understand how much human beings need eye contact. Like that's just like they need it.
Right.
It's like
and
they have to have it.
attentive care, right? The close physicality, like that's all of that is so deeply healing for us as humans. And I love when you said this fear of if I give that level of intimacy, something's going to be taken from me. And then realizing that it wasn't about taking, it was actually about sort of connecting this flow of energy.
Reciprocal. Yeah.
Right. I resonate with that so hard because, and I think I feel that in a lot of different interactions with other humans where sometimes we're afraid that vulnerable, authentic interaction with other humans will take something from us. And I think probably that's because a lot of us that has happened, right? We've been in intimate relationships, probably with our parents, where that did happen, right? Where an encounter, like eye contact, something like that was sort of a take. But realizing that an encounter with a human, an intimate encounter with a human, whether that's a touch, whether that's a glance, but whatever form that takes, that can be beautifully, energetically healing to both of you, right? It creates this like really positive exchange that can go as high as you want to take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started to love that and feed off of that, and I think that's where I started to set myself apart as an entertainer. Um, and I loved that you used words like magic because like when it's doing what it should be doing, when you're performing, it's magic. And whether that's stand up or whether it's stripping or whether it's any other type of, performance, when it's doing what it's meant to do, it is absolutely magical. There was something else I was going to say about that, about just that I don't necessarily feel like I am exceptionally talented or beautiful or smart, but that I do feel like I have made an effort to create a performance that does feel special for some reason. And I think it's those little things like that
Yeah.
that people comment often on, like, have you seen Molly dance? Like, have you seen her? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I think that it is, of course, the hours of practice. It is, of course, that I work out and I have a certain aesthetic, but it's also, yeah, me connecting to and channeling something um that is that it's spiritual. You know what I mean? Like as a
Totally.
performer.
That's
And
spiritual and that is also like, that's also deeply connective, right? When I imagine like the so many of us as humans get so little attentive care from other humans, right? Where they're looking at us, they're touching us, right? So we're so starved for that.
Mhm.
And it seems like the vibe that you've tried to create is, I'm going to check all these boxes. I'm going to be an expert in all these categories. And I'm going to bring a level of attentiveness and attunement and care to this experience so that everyone leaves filled up.
Yeah, that was something I wanted. And this is part of I could take this so many directions, but I've always wanted people to leave the interaction, and whatever amount of money they spent, I want them to be like, "Yep, glad I spent that.
Yeah.
Um, don't regret that at all." And, in some of my writings and things I've gotten into, of course, humans need eye contact. They also need play. So
Yeah.
like, and so people, there's so many people, especially like, I feel like maybe certain kinds of men that are like, well, I don't want to feel like I have to pay for that kind of attention. I don't want to feel like I have to pay. And I'm like, you're paying for entertainment. If you understand the concept of paying for a concert, if you understand the concept even of paying for an ambiance, going to a restaurant when you could eat at home, like how can you not wrap your brain around that? Like, for example, sorry, I will jump all over the place, and this is just how my brain works. But like,
I love where this is going because I have a thought about this as soon as you're done.
I don't know where this is going. I'm not sure you know where this is going. But like, for example, this is one of the things that I say, and it sounds weird, but like I've never had like a threesome, but I have some interest in it, but I've never had one. But I know that if I did, I would want to hire a professional.
Yeah.
And so getting back to what I do, if you want to be entertained erotically, if you're craving connection, or if you're, you know what I mean? Like these women, especially when they've been in a long time, they are professionals at that. You
Mhm.
need someone, you want to feel seen and heard. And like, and I'm not saying all strippers are super good at this, but the joke is that they're therapists. Like, and I can't tell you how many times my job just feels like I need a therapy degree, yo. Like,
You should get like a one grandfathered in if you do a certain number of years of stripping, you just
you should.
automatically get. I think
Yeah.
you, and I love what you said about this idea of pay the professionals, right? Because what I think is really cool, right? So what I've learned having grown up Mormon and having been taught as a Mormon that the way to approach eroticism was to not think about it or do anything with it, to not even touch it until I got married. And then as soon as I got married, magically, I would become an erotic powerhouse. Like
Yes.
it would just automatically turn on and
With
everything.
no information or practice, and being
zero
told
information,
it was
zero.
being told it was next to murder.
Yeah. I was going to go from next to murder to erotic God, like
Yeah.
that all that needed to happen was I had to go to a super special space castle, and a dude dressed all in white would do some really magic hand signs over me, and that then I would be just unbelievable in bed.
Duh. Yeah.
And that is not what happened. And what I've learned, having now left that and actually tried to intentionally, like I left Mormonism, and then I was like, I'm essentially a 14-year-old boy, a 12-year-old boy when it comes to my sexual expression and sexual development. Because right around the time when I started maturing and experiencing erotic energy, the religion that I was in told me, don't even touch that.
No.
Stay away from that. That's dangerous and bad. And in fact, if you touch that, you'll want to touch it more, and that will be your fault. Right. So all of that energy is sort of coming into that. And, oh shit, I just lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Your body's a sin.
My body's a sin. And so when I left, I was like, I need to have experiences with erotic energy so that I can learn how that energy wants to move and express in my body, and that I can sort of get that energy back for myself. And I think that anyone who's in Mormonism probably needs to have an experience sort of like that, where you need to sort of like reclaim that energy. And when you reclaim that energy, it starts to become really fun. It starts to become really playful. You start to realize that there's all kinds of different things that you can do with that energy, that humans have actually been playing with that energy for a really long time. And some people are professionals when it comes to playing with this energy. Some people, their entire job, what they do all the time, is intentionally develop and cultivate their ability to play with this erotic energy in a bunch of different ways. And so why would you, it's odd that we have a stigma with this, because we have no stigma for people who intentionally cultivate a healing energy and become a doctor. We have no stigma for someone who intentionally cultivates a business energy and becomes a business person. So why would we have a stigma over people who are intentionally cultivating their ability to create and channel erotic energy, and then offer that as a beautiful gift and service to those of us who need it?
That's what I'm saying, yo. And it's, of course, it's the thing we always say, it's the oldest profession.
Yeah.
The first fucking job there ever fucking was. And yet here we are trying to say sex work is real work.
Yeah.
Do you really want to validate the oldest profession in the world? I'm still over here trying to get you to validate that.
The oldest profession, a thing that we built temples to, that we had sacred vestal virgins who were not virgins. They fucked everyone. That was their job. And it's wild to me. And I think that a big reason why we probably do it is that in the West, there was a religious ideology that looked at erotic energy and said, if we can attach shame to that, I'll bet we can really control people. And we can probably milk off tons and tons and tons of money over their guilt, because they'll do something, because all humans at some point will have some kind of erotic expression.
Yeah.
And it will look so different for so many different people. And that could be a big erotic expression. It could be a teeny, teeny, tiny little one, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole spectrum of it.
To me, anything that's creative has the root of sexual energy.
100%.
That's uncomfortable, I think, for a lot of people, but creative energy is sexual energy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I wish I could, I'm terrible at remembering names of things. I read a lot, I'm well read, but I'm not good at remembering dates or names. But there was actually, there's a very progressive priest recently who's left, who was very high up in the church and has left, the Catholic Church, but he did a lot of research into this, and there was actually like a big shift that you can see very clearly where there was someone in leadership who had a lot of sexual deviancy. And this is like, damn, I wish I knew. I think it was like many hundreds of years ago, right? But he had a lot of sexual perversion. And so he really started to implement this sexual shame thing, and that you can trace a lot of what has happened to this specific person.
Damn it, dude.
You know, like, what?
I just said, damn it, dude.
Damn it, dude. Man, I wish I could throw out who it was, because it was really, really such a good read.
Then we could
But yeah,
sacrifice.
before that, and it really ties in, I think, so intense. And like, if you would do research on sex work, like, we're talking like women who impacted world wars. We're talking about people who were at the front lines of revolutions.
Yeah.
This is who sex workers are, and who have always been, but are often, taken out of those stories,
Yeah, we're talking about
sexual
Jesus,
shame.
we're talking about the people that Jesus wanted to hang out with the most.
Yeah.
He was always hanging out with, because there's a vibrant, powerful energy that's embodied, I think, in someone who's mastered that energy enough to be like, oh, this is a gift that I have to give to the world.
Yeah. I'm spiritually connected in this way intensely, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is interesting, because like, I don't know when I started to notice that about myself, but I think it was probably, like you're saying, like 13 or something like that. But before it was 13, before I knew what sexual energy was, I was seeing old movies, or I was seeing things like that and this does get a little bit into like cabaret types of vibes, where I would see anything like that was cabaret-esque or stripper-esque, and I was like, that's all I want to watch. That's all I want to be. That's all I want to embody. And that was long before I had any sexual feelings. I didn't understand that was anything about enjoying watching a female's body was sexual. You know what I mean? Like, that was something I was highly interested in before I connected it to anything sexual.
It's so much like, we have probably, as humans, been watching women dance erotically for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right? We have been, every night we're putting on a campfire, we're beating our drums, and there are beautiful women just
gyrating, jiggling,
doing their thing. And that is, I think, such a beautiful expression of who humans are. And it irks me that we have that there's any discussion about whether or not that's good or bad. What could possibly be bad about appreciating and enjoying the beauty of another person who's offering that beauty to you?
And what else is strange, like, how come cheerleading and gymnastics are okay? Like, how is that? How is that like that's a form of that, right?
Right.
Like, how come certain ways it's more acceptable, and in other ways, if it's more direct, or even if it's just different, or especially if it's not, I don't know, cookie cutter, or like if it's exotic in any way, you know what I mean? That's when we have a problem with it.
Yeah. I think probably what it is that we are afraid of getting turned on.
But you get turned on at the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, and I do. And what I think, I mean, have you seen the melons at the bat place? But I think that here's where I think maybe things are off is, number one, I think that as a culture, we have made turn on shameful and something that is not okay to experience, right? So that when a lot of people feel a sensation of, "Ooh, I'm now turned on by something," that's often accompanied with a lot of shame and a lot of like, "Oh, I shouldn't do that." And anytime you have this energy that rises up and then you try to tamp that thing down, then it starts to come out in weird, perverted ways. So, because that energy has to move. it is going to move. It's the most powerful fucking thing on this planet. It created this planet, right? The reason why our planet is the way that it is because there's this sexual, erotic energy that moves and pumps, and it's the lifeblood of our entire planet. And so it has to move, right? And if you say, no, don't move it, no, stick it down, then it's going to come out in weird ways. And that leads to the second problem with it, which is that a lot of time, people who are male bodied or have a male experience, they are not taught or expected to know how to channel that energy when it rises up in them and to know how to contain and hold it. And so when they feel that little turn on, they feel shame about it. And they also have no way to channel that or control it, or they have no context for how to do that. And so they feel like, oh, well, now I have a boner and now it's everyone's problem. Rather than just being like, oh, you have a boner right now. Great. That's your problem. There's nothing wrong with having a boner. Boners just pop up. They pop up whenever they want to. But if you as a male bodied person, if you can sort of allow that to happen and not feel shame and then not make it anyone else's problem.
We've made being human shameful, like especially for men. Yeah. Like crying, emoting, having an erection, like anything.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say crying, because I think that in a lot of ways, those things are connected, right? I think that males in our culture have been conditioned to really only express like two emotions: rage and
arousal,
right? Those are the two things, rage and arousal. If you're a man, those are the two things that you get to feel. And that is such a limited experience and so damaging for it. Actually it makes me angry and sad for other people who are like me, who do not get to experience the full range of what it means to be human because they've been so locked into this one place. And I actually think that's probably why sex workers become therapists, right? Why there's a sort of a therapeutic energy there. And that in a lot of ways, the work that sex workers are doing is helping people who have been limited to two expressions come into a wider expression of who they are, because they've been made to feel safe in their sexual turn on. And they've also been given a structured environment in which to move that energy. So everyone knows the rules. Everyone knows how we're going to take care of people. And it doesn't always go perfectly, but generally it's a safe interaction where that energy can move. And then it can also start to get them in touch with other sensations that they have, with other ways of being human. And so you're sort of starting with this one feeling that they're allowed to feel, and then you're sort of widening their ability to feel other things. And I imagine that's a pretty beautiful experience to have with another human.
Yeah. I mean, is it Marvin Gaye that sings Sexual Healing? And that's sung by a man. There's a reason why a man wrote that song, not that women can't experience sexual healing or that they don't, but that I think they're usually the ones giving that. But sorry, what was your question? You had a question and I just kind of,
I don't know. Maybe it was just a statement that landed in a question. Let's maybe shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about, so when I first invited you to do this podcast, I was like, hey, come on the podcast. It's called Vibing the Apocalypse. We assume in this podcast that the apocalypse has already happened. And your response to that was obviously.
Yeah, duh.
So yeah. I'm just curious about why was that your response? Why do you think the apocalypse has happened? What are you seeing in the world of apocalypses in today?
So the reason, I said yeah to that is that I'm pretty a gut instinctual kind of person. And when something resonates for me, it just resonates for me. It doesn't always make sense to me, but I definitely can explain why I think that resonated for me. And it is that, yeah, we are living in like the most intense, difficult, terrible, terrifying, horrific times. And like, I had a friend recently who said something about talking about anxiety and da 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 about anxiety, and you know, that they're always at a 7. And I was like, do you think there's people out here not at a 7 of
Yeah, who
anxiety?
the
Do
fuck
you
is
think
not at a
do you
7?
think you could look at anyone out here who's not at a 7? Um, and just people, oh, I have anxiety, I have anxiety. Do you see anyone out here who doesn't have fucking anxiety right
Yeah.
now?
Anxiety is a valid and appropriate response
To the apocalypse.
to the world being on fire. That's
Yeah.
that's not anxiety. That's just your nervous system telling you, dude, something's fucked up right now.
Like, we're not okay. Like,
Yeah.
no one is okay. I don't know anyone who's okay. No one is okay.
I don't either. And
Like,
what's kind of comforting though about no one being okay is that it sort of feels validating. Like the thing that I feel when I think, oh, this is just the apocalypse, is I feel like this weight of like, oh, it's okay that things are crazy right now. It's okay that I have no clue. It's okay that some days I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how we get out of this. And that is a legitimate and valid and appropriate response to a world that has gone mad.
mhm. And acceptable. I think acceptance is so huge and important just in general to surviving this apocalypse, you know? And I think what's really important too is like finding your role in that. Not the one you wanted, not the one whatever, you know what I mean? Like I have all these, I'm I'm a creative, I'm a writer, you know, I've had some success in those areas, you know, I've had an acting career where I had 30 plus, you know, credits in film and TV and movies and stuff, but I ended up, you know, stripping and being like my main source of income, right? Um and I don't know, I feel bad even articulating this, but it's something I have to say anyways. There's no part of me that wants to own a cabaret or a strip club. Like, there really is. Like, it was something that I'm like, I don't want to do this. I have to do this. This isn't something I'm like, oh, that would be great, and this and that. No, it's like something I felt very specifically in this apocalypse called to do, which was like, these women need to make money. These women need opportunities.
Yeah.
These women need to pay their bills and feed their kids. And some of them are taking care of parents, and some of them are, you know, doing all these things, and they need to be able to make money. And they need a place that people aren't going to abuse them in.
Yes.
And this is really hard for me to talk about because I know that there's men in this industry who I've worked with who will feel a type of way if and when they hear this. But, and I could go into all different paths of this, but like, there is some men doing a really good job, doing their best. But at the end of the day, why in a female-dominated industry are the men running things? That
Right.
doesn't make I love men. And I'm not going to lie and say I haven't struggled with some misandry, because you can't work in an industry like mine and not have struggled with some misandry, okay?
Well, and let's be real. Men's track record over the last several hundred years
Yeah.
deserves a mild amount of misandry.
And I don't hate men. I hate what society has done to men.
Yes.
I don't hate men. I hate the ways that they've been forced to behave because they were born into this society. Anyways, so it's a really bizarre position that I'm in. And it was actually so I meditate a lot and get really quiet with myself, and I get really quiet with whatever forces that be, because I'm not entirely sure what I believe. I believe that there's the highest form of myself, or the highest form of my intelligence in my brain. So if I like to take it kind of scientifical, because spirituality can be a little bit like much for me. I like to believe that there's a highest part of my brain that I occasionally have access to through meditation or through breath work or through whatever practices I can to tap into the highest level of my intelligence. And through my meditation and trying to figure that out, all I could figure out was that I didn't have a choice about this path. This path was going to happen, that I was the one who, wow, this is given Jesus right now, which I don't like.
I love this. You had a revelation.
The answer
You
came
had
in
a
very
revelation
clear
from
to me.
God
I had a revelation from God
to open to create a safe,
yeah,
to create a latter day
because
cabaret.
I could.
Yeah.
That was like, the answer came in so clear to me. It was like, not because I wanted to, it was because I knew that I could. I knew that it would be hard, but that I knew that I could do it, and that the biggest reason I was called to do it was because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Was because I didn't have any part of me that wanted this to control women or to exploit them or to gain some kind of power dynamics that would benefit me in some way. You know what I mean? Like, I do want to make money. I'm about that money life. Like, I'm not going to play. Money is abundance to me. Money is good, and I love it.
Yeah, the way to make money is to make money for your girls, right? And create a space for them to do it safely and
changing the structure. The structure used to be and has been that in strip club, and this is also we could go too far on this with cabaret and strippers club stuff, so we won't go there. But in strip clubs, they take a percentage of your tips, and there's house fees. So the what's it called? The structure is we don't make money off the people coming in. Really, we do, but mainly we're taking money from the dancers. That's how we do this.
Yeah.
So the structure at my spot is we do have stage fees. They're super, super low. Like, for example, at a typical strip club, it's like $100 stage fee, and then you also give out a portion of your tips. We're doing like $5 stage fees just because we want to try and stay open. We're like, how do we like did all the math, and then we redid the math, and then we kept going on the math, and we were like, how can we? I wanted to have no stage fees, right? I want to pay them to be there, but I can't. I'm just starting out. I'm trying to build this business, and the structure is not that. I don't know how an industry works where you're not taking all the money from the dancers, right? But I'm gonna find out.
We're gonna figure it out.
Because I'm like, how can a bar make money and be successful? But somehow in the strip club pattern, it doesn't work like that. It's all from the dancers. And so I'm like, anyways, the point is I'm trying to build a structure that is taking as little from them as possible, but is also still saying, yeah, you're kind of renting the stage and the space for your performance. So give us a little bit of money, but also we have it structured so that it's like, if you make under $50 or if you make under this certain amount, no stage fee. Don't even fucking worry about it, babe. Like, if you didn't make a lot of money, that's not expected of you, which is not the way these other clubs are doing it.
You're really coming in as like a disruptor. Like, you're coming in to disrupt and change the way, which is very apocalyptic of you, right? That's what the whole thing that happens with apocalypses is the old world breaks and then we build a new and better world. And I love I feel that really strongly from you because I think it's so wonderful what you're doing because it's creating this thing that is going to be here, right? We are going to exchange erotic energy in Utah in a bunch of different ways, right? We're going to do that. And so how are we going to do that? What are the venues? What are the ways that we're going to create pathways for people to do it? And I love that your mind is in there doing that. Because what I'm seeing from you is I see the value and the power of this energy that I'm working with. And it's important to me to be caring for the people who are doing this work. And I think that is going to create a really energetically pure vibe for your business and for the thing that you're doing that I think will start to attract the kinds of people who are going to want to make it rain, right? Who are going to want to actually go in there and play with this energy and play with it with people who are professional, who kick ass and who feel safe doing it. Right. All of that feels so great, right? If I've got money to spend and I want to have that experience, to be able to go to a place that's going to be fun, that's going to be exciting, that I know that the people there are being well taken care of and that it's a win for what a magical, fun, energetic experience for everyone to have.
Yeah. There's a little story that I tell that is so interesting because it feels to me that the people in power have been aware of this in this industry, but don't want to take it as far as it can go. So my quick story is that I met this strip club owner randomly at a party, like not a stripper party, nothing, just like ran into him and he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to own this club and that strip club," and was talking my ear off, and I was like interested, but also I could tell he was kind of a dickhole, and so I was like, "All right, tell me your stories, whatever." Anyways, he said, "Yeah, Trails, which is where I used to be." Um, he's like, basically he was talking about them as a disruptor over one thing that they did. He said, "Yeah, they started walking their dancers to and from the stage, and then those dancers really started to think something of themselves, and then they made all the money, and that's how they put everyone else out of business." And I'm like, how come someone didn't look at that and go, "Oh, the better you treat these people, the
Yes.
better they're going to treat the people who come in, and the more money you're going to make, dumbass." Like, instead, I've just seen that little things like that get implemented, but then just mainly watch the dancers be shit on, like completely abused, berated, um, assaulted, you know what I mean, by the men. Not all the men, not all the men in the industry, but enough. And no one
Right.
will
Enough
speak
that there's a
because
threat
they're
of it.
usually at the top. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, um, and just being so highly aware of how to make this a successful thing and watching people do the opposite of that and be abusive, killing me, man.
I just had this hilarious little image of you pop into my mind, which is you as the angel Moroni, like gold with a sheet and a trumpet. And
Mhm.
anytime someone does something naughty or bad in your cabaret, you walk up to them and you just blow really loud in their face. And you like blow them out.
I would love that. Let's implement that.
Yeah. I think that's like because essentially what you're doing, right, is you're saying, this is my space. And in my space, we play and are curious and have fun with this experience, with this energy.
Mhm.
And if you're going to come into my space, you're going to treat everyone in it well. And if you don't, you will be blown away.
Yeah.
Like you will be goodbye. You're not welcome here. And I think that is awesome. I think that's super fun. And I think there's also, it's like super hot too, right? Because you're creating this container that says, I know exactly the experience that I want to have here and the experience that I want everyone to have here. And by God, you will not violate my boundaries.
There's a book called, I think it's called Why Men Love Bitches. But people respond well to boundaries and people respond well to bitches specifically. I love bitches. Bitches are my favorite people in the whole world. And the reason is that you can trust them. They're being honest with you. You might not like what they're saying or doing or the boundaries that they're giving you, but you can feel safe in it because you're like, I know this person's dealing with me in a real way.
Yeah. I have had so much fun.
It
is coming up on an hour. Thank you so much for coming on. There are a couple more things we have to do. So number one is this is actually the first time we're going to do this. So we're adding a new segment to the podcast called Ask a Seer Stone. And the premise of this segment is that as the one true prophet, I'm a Mormon prophet. And so the way that I receive revelation is the Mormon way, which is by looking at a rock in a hat. So I would like to introduce you to the seer stone for today. Would you like to meet today's seer stone?
Mm-hmm.
So in honor of you, I have this very beautiful orange citrine goddess.
That is everything.
Isn't that everything? And she has
and she's citrine too.
She's citrine. She's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this,
I like her.
This little portal for you to gaze into to achieve enlightenment and wisdom.
Mhm.
So that's who we're going to consult today. What question would you like to ask God through this seer stone?
What question would I like to ask God through the Pussy Portal Seer Stone?
Pussy Portal Seer Stone. Yes.
Dear Lord, I think the only one I can really think of right now is like, how do I get through all these things I'm trying to do and not die? Because all the transformation and growth is making me like, bro, I'm gonna die. Like, help me. Tell me, Lord, what it is I need to do. Wait, is this the way this question works? Am I doing it
This
right?
is how that works. Yes. So you've now asked. I'm going to
Yeah.
consult our Lord and see what she has to say.
Okay, thank you.
My nose is like right in the portal.
Where it belongs, yeah.
So verily, verily, thus saith the Lord unto my servant Molly the stripper. You are doing God's work in the state of Utah
Mhm.
because so many people are so deeply fucked up in their erotic, sacral, sexual energy. And they've been fucked up for hundreds of years, and they need a really safe place and safe people to start to work some of that shit out. So I'm super proud of you. Good job for
Thanks,
listening to
God.
my call. No problem. You heard me loud and clear. You're doing exactly what I made you to do. And the way that you're going to get through it is by allowing the experience to stretch you in the ways that it's going to. So what's actually true is that you are going to have to be, you imagine like your higher self in your brain, right? You're going to have to be more of what you really are in order to do the things that you want to do and the things that I've called you to do, the things that I actually created you to do. And so that stretching that you're feeling right now is actually part of the experience. It's just stretching you into the kind of person that is going to be able to do and handle and be the kind of person that will create the kind of change that I want to see in the world. And so you're doing it just right. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. You don't have to resist any of it. You just have to allow, and everything that you allow will move through you, and it will be for your good. And it will actually create the responses and the reactions and the instincts that you need in order to do the work that you've been called to do. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Roman, thank you so much. I loved that.
Yeah, I that was straight from God.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Let's just really quick, let's wrap up with again, you are having a grand opening for what is it? Have we even said the name of your room yet?
I don't think so. It's Molly's Gemini Room.
Molly's Gemini Room. I love that that's the name because I am a triple Gemini.
No.
Yes.
Shut up.
Yeah, I'm actually the king of the Geminis, and no one voted for that. I just appointed myself like a true Gemini, and yeah. So it's
like your sun, moon, and rising. Is that what you're saying to me?
I'm my sun, moon, and my Jupiter.
And your Jupiter. Okay,
Yeah,
I forget. Yeah, there's other placements. That is insane to me. I had no idea.
Yeah, I think it's kismet that we are connecting over this, because I think that I love what you are doing, the work that you're doing, and I also feel really passionate about how important it is, right? That you're creating just a place for people to go and have fun, but also what you're doing is you're creating a space where people who have been really deeply wounded can go and start to get some of those wounds healed. So a great start for that is to go to the grand opening of Molly's Gemini Room, which is going to be Thursday, April 25th at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it located?
It is at 412 West, 600 North in Salt Lake City. We are like 3-4 minutes north of downtown. Super close to downtown. 412 West, 600 North. It's right off the freeway. It is on a one-way street. Some people have been like, it's too hard. And I'm like, you'll figure it out. I'm sure you'll figure it out.
If the Mormon pioneers could trek across the plains to who are your ancestors to come to Utah, you guys can find this location.
You've been there. It's not that hard to find. It's a little bit like, okay. And then you get it a few times and you're like, okay, it's pretty easy.
The way that I would describe it is it's a little hidden, right? And it's like,
which is intentional. Yeah. Like
kind of like you gotta really want to go there in order to find it.
Yeah. It's kind of an industrial area. It's a speakeasy type of vibe. When you come in, you're going to be like, oh, like you're going to go to the parking lot. You're going to be like, where I'm by the freeway. What's happening here? But places like this have historically been in areas like this.
Yeah.
And so I like it for that.
The vibe of the contrast too of where you're at when you park, right? Because you're kind of like, oh, this is a little industrial is a great description for it. You're kind of like, oh, this is where I would go to pick up my car after it had been towed.
Mm-hmm.
And then you walk in and the whole space is really cool. Like it's intimate, it's close, like it's like a big hug. And so I remember the first time walking in, I was just like, oh wow, this place is cool.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole vibe, but I do want to say, and maybe I should have said this earlier, that like there is a low capacity. And so if for some reason you come to the grand opening and you can't get in, which would be great for us, right? I mean, but we want you to get in. We're going to have like some, free tickets and things to give away if that happens. But come back over the weekend. Come back over the weekend if you can't make it to Thursday,
Yeah. And what I would say too is that occupancy is like 49.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very exclusive, very intimate. And the way to make sure that you get in is to go to, is it Molly's Gemini Room?
And you can RSVP.
And so if you're RSVP'd, bam, you get to go in. So I would do that if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I definitely want to go and check this out. It's going to be a really fun night because it's going to have some comedy. It's going to have some music. It's going to have some dancing. And it really is going to, I think, showcase the kind of experience that you're going to be able to have at the room. And I'm excited for that because it's going to be very, very, very flashy, very sophisticated. Like we're going to put on a really cool show for people. And you're going to want to be there, right? So if you like comedy, if you like cabaret, if you want more of that kind of place and that kind of experience here in Utah, AKA if you're a fun person, then you should totally come out and we're going to have a great time. So April 25th, Thursday, 7 p.m. And the address again is 612.
It's 412 West, 600 South.
412 West, 600 South. And if you just Google Molly's Gemini Room, you'll find it. So.
Yep. And my handle is Molly the Stripper if you need to message me, or the page is Molly's Gemini Room on Instagram as well. Message if you have any questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So ask Molly, it's Ask a Stripper.
My page is Molly the Stripper, but I have a podcast called Ask the Stripper that's not active right now. I have 2 seasons, but I've been busy as hell. So
yeah, you're opening your own little room. So Molly the Stripper and Molly's Gemini Room on Instagram. Any other places where people can follow you or learn about what you're doing?
Nope.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Molly the Stripper. And I'm going to be at her grand opening on Thursday, the 25th. We're going to have a great time, and I hope that you come out. And until then, good luck vibing this apocalypse.